Settle down now! Settle down!
Jean arrives at her new school, taking in the sight of well-dressed students and the grand buildings that line the campus. She tells herself this is a fresh start and promises to stay out of trouble. Yet it soon becomes clear that she left her previous school because of frequent fights. Determined to find her class, Jean heads to the receptionist and asks for the location of Section E. While waiting, she notices a girl giving her a look of disgust but decides to ignore it. Following the directions, she ends up in front of an old, crumbling building that stands in sharp contrast to the rest of the campus. Hoping the inside will be better, she steps in, only to find a dusty, disorganized mess. But in this forgotten corner of the campus, she's about to meet the people who will change her life forever. This is the jewel of Section E. Inside, she encounters a group of boys and asks where Section E is. Their leader, Kiefer, tells her she is in the wrong place. Jean insists the receptionist sent her there, but Kiefer curtly tells her to leave.
Not here. Go back to the main building.
Fighting the urge to lash out, she walks away and makes her way to a cleaner building, slipping into a classroom. There she meets Raki, the class president, who checks her papers and confirms she really is in Section E. Realizing Kiefer lied, Jean returns to the old building and finds the Section E classroom, occupied entirely by boys. She introduces herself, but Kiefer mocks her, earning laughter from the others.
I'm Jasper Jean Mariano.
Are you still a virgin?
Be serious!
Jean fires back with a sharp remark, and from that moment, a rivalry begins. The tension grows as the boys harass her throughout the day. They block her from sitting anywhere and pelt her with paper balls until class ends. At lunch, Jean joins Raki and her friends, claiming everyone in Section E was kind to her. They exchange doubtful looks, knowing the class is full of troublemakers. Aries, who knows Jean, remarks that the class suits her perfectly. She ignores him and heads back to Section E. Looking for a place to eat, Jean opens her lunch, but it is snatched away. Felix, one of the boys, apologizes while warning her never to eat in front of them again, explaining they are banned from the cafeteria. When she pulls out more food, Felix takes that as well. Later, a female teacher arrives but refuses to teach in such a filthy room. She warns that if it is not cleaned before her next class, she will not return. Jean tries to rally her classmates to help, but they walk out, lock the door, and leave her to clean alone. She finishes the job while they laugh from outside. That evening, Jean returns home to her uncle's family. When her aunt asks about her first day, Jean hides the truth and says it went well. Her aunt reminds her of her promise to stay out of trouble, and Jean assures her she will keep it. The next day, Jean walks into class, only for Kiefer to shove a list of food into her hand and order her to buy it from the cafeteria. She refuses, insisting she is not their servant. Kiefer warns her that if she wants to stay, she must follow his orders. Jean snaps back that she has wanted to punch him since the moment they met. Their argument is cut short when the teacher arrives. At lunch, the boys gather around Yuri, who has brought food for everyone. When his eyes fall on Jean, his expression hardens. Felix explains she's the new student, but Yuri simply stares at her before leaving without a word. Curious, Jean asks who he is. Felix tells her that Yuri has just returned from visiting family in Japan and is one of Kiefer's closest friends. Later, Yuri pulls Kiefer aside and says he does not want a girl in their section. Kiefer explains that he has already tried to drive her away, but she refuses to quit. Yuri suggests they keep pressuring her until she leaves, and Kiefer agrees. The next morning, Jean runs into her cousin Angelo on the way to school. She asks about Section E, and Angelo explains it is for troublemakers. Once placed there, students remain until graduation, although girls can transfer out if they maintain top grades and stay out of trouble. On the way, Jean spots a boy single-handedly beating 4 others in a fight. He introduces himself as Cinco, one of her classmates, and walks with her to school. She asks why Section E is banned from the cafeteria. Cinco says he will tell her if she buys him food, and she agrees. Over lunch, Cinco explains that the ban began when a girl named Ella, once in Section E, fell for Kiefer. After she transferred to another class, Kiefer caught her kissing a boy in the cafeteria. Enraged, he fought the boy and wrecked the place, leading to the entire section being banned. Later, Jean returns to class and finds her clothes glued to her desk. Kiefer and Yuri are behind the prank, and the class bursts into laughter. She calls out to Cinco and Felix, reminding them she always shares her food. Feeling guilty, they help her, but her clothes tear in the process. Cinco quickly hands her his jacket. Fuming, Jean storms off to find Kiefer and Yuri. She throws the jacket in Kiefer's face and warns them that she will no longer stay quiet about anything they do to her. Without another word, she turns and walks away. On her way home, Cinco catches up to her and gives her another jacket. She thanks him and heads inside, unaware that the group he fought earlier is already waiting to ambush him for revenge. That night, Jean has dinner with her uncle's family. Her younger cousin Aries makes no effort to hide his dislike for her. Angelo is quick to notice, and is even more upset when he learns Aries has not been giving her rides to school. Angelo orders him to start driving her and to keep her safe. The next morning, Aries drives Jean to school. In class, Kiefer makes another attempt, handing her a food list along with money. Jean refuses, saying she will only get food for her friends. Still, she heads to the cafeteria and buys everything on the list. When she returns, the boys are delighted, even Kiefer. Felix invites her to sit with them, and Jean accepts, feeling for the first time that she belongs. Across the room, however, Yuri watches in silence, his expression cold, before turning away in anger. The next day in class, the teacher begins calling names to gauge the students' knowledge. The boys remain indifferent, ignoring every question, until she calls Jean's full name. The moment it reveals she shares a last name with Aries, Kiefer immediately asks if they are related. Jean casually replies that he is her cousin, and the mood in the room shifts at once. The boys grow tense and distant, and Jean senses there is some conflict between Aries and the class, though she does not yet know why. After class, she tries to speak to them, but they avoid her. Meanwhile, Kiefer and Yuri gather the others to look her up online. They uncover records from her old school, detailing a history of serious misbehavior, fights, injuries, and even an incident where she stabbed a boy with a pencil. Another classmate adds to the gossip, revealing her family background. Her father has been missing for years, her mother left when she was young, remarried, and started a new life, and Jean lived with her grandmother until recently moving in with her uncle's family. This fuels Kiefer and Yuri's suspicion that Aries placed her in Section E to spy on them. When cleaning time arrives, the boys once again leave Jean to handle it alone. Kiefer makes things worse by tipping over trash bins. Frustrated, she dumps paper onto the floor and declares she will not clean unless he helps.
Makulit ka, ah. Ito gusto mo? Ano? Sige!
Knowing Kiefer's temper, Yuri persuades him to join in to avoid escalating the situation. The next morning, Jean rides with Aries until she spots Cinco walking to school. She asks Aries to stop so she can join him instead. On the way, Cinco explains he has been absent because of another fight that left him injured. Jean tells him how the class reacted after learning she is Aries' cousin, and asks if he will treat her the same. He promises he will not. Later, Cinco leads her behind one of the buildings to watch the election for class president. Instead of a vote, it turns into a fistfight between Kiefer and David. Kiefer wins, and the boys cheer as they carry him away. Jean stays behind to help David get home. The next day, Jean brings food for both Cinco and David. Kiefer and Yuri notice, their irritation growing as she begins to get along with the others. They decide they cannot let her feel too comfortable in Section E. Their opportunity comes when they hear the next period is PE in the gym. At the same time, Aries is with a friend when Ella arrives, making it obvious they are a couple. Aries decides to go to the gym to see Jean, but makes a point of getting close to Ella, knowing it will provoke Kiefer. The plan works. Kiefer's anger boils over, and he directs it at Jean. Pretending to teach her how to catch a ball, he hurls it hard at her. The ball smashes into her face, knocking her to the ground and causing her nose to bleed. The gym falls silent. Kiefer considers apologizing, but stops when he sees Aries already by her side. 2 days later, Jean is still resting in bed. She tells her aunt she wants to leave the school because of the constant harassment and her promise not to fight back. Her aunt reminds her she can still stand up for herself without breaking that promise. Later, while on her way to buy medicine, Jean is stopped by classmates trying to drag her somewhere. She breaks free and runs into Kiefer, who says they were bringing her to him. At a nearby cafe, she asks what he wants. He claims it is nothing, then gently applies a bandage to her injury and orders ice cream for her. When she accuses him of trying to buy her silence, he admits he is bad at apologizing but assumes all girls like ice cream. Jean leaves, only to return moments later, grab the ice cream, and walk away without saying a word. The next day, Jean heads into the bathroom. Moments later, a group of girls enters, chatting about the recent gym incident. Freya mocks Ella for leaving Kiefer to date Aries. When Mika stays silent, Freya presses her for an opinion. Mika hesitates, then says she thinks Ella is actually a good person. Freya clearly dislikes the answer but quickly shifts her focus to Jean, wondering aloud why the boys even notice her and adding that she is not pretty. Listening from a stall, Jean's temper flares. She bursts out, splashes water into Freya's face, and bolts towards Section E. Freya and her friends give chase, catching up to her just outside the classroom. The commotion draws the boys from Section E, as well as Freya's male friends, Ella and Ares. Freya demands that Jean be punished. Ares steps forward, announcing that Jean is his cousin. Jean expects him to defend her, but he quickly adds that he will not take her side if she was in the wrong. Freya seizes the moment to explain the school's social hierarchy. Category A, her group, is led by Ares and treated like royalty. Category B serves them. Category C stays friendly with everyone. And Category D, made up of boys, acts as their enforcers. At the bottom is Category E, where Jean belongs, ignored by everyone else. Freya offers to forgive her if she kneels and kisses her shoe. Jean refuses and exposes Freya's earlier insult toward Ella in the bathroom. Freya denies it and shifts the blame to Mika. Her friends back up the lie, leaving Mika stunned. Mika begs Ares to believe her, but he orders the Category D boys to punish her instead. Before they can act, Calix from Category E steps in, easily defeating them. It is revealed that he is Mika's ex-boyfriend. The situation quickly escalates when Ares attacks Kaifa, and soon the entire courtyard erupts into chaos.
It's all your fault!
Later, Yuri and Kaifa discuss the incident. Yuri points out that their plan to drive Jean away is failing, and the boys are starting to like her. Kaifa proposes a new strategy: win her trust, break her heart, and anger Ares in the process. Yuri agrees. Their conversation is cut short when Cinco rushes in, saying Jean is in trouble with Category D in the gym. Kaifa runs there and finds her on the ground, about to be struck. He intercepts the attack, takes down the boy, and stands beside her to face 3 more opponents. Fighting together, they manage to win before collapsing from exhaustion. Jean thanks him just as Yuri and Cinco arrive. Yuri helps her up, warns that the school will investigate, and asks her not to mention Kaifa's name to avoid him being expelled. She agrees. The following day, heavy rain leads to an early dismissal. Jean calls Ares for a ride, but he never shows. While she waits in the downpour, Yuri spots her and offers to take her home. She accepts, but when flooding blocks the road, he brings her to his house instead. Inside, Jean is struck by the luxury of his home. Yuri leads her to a guest room, tells her to change out of her wet clothes, and offers his own for her to wear until hers are washed. He leaves her in silence, the room filled only with the sound of rain outside. A little later, Yuri returns and sits beside Jean. She asks about his family, and he explains that his parents live in Japan, running their business, while he stays in this large house with only his grandfather. He then takes her to lunch with his grandfather, who is pleasantly surprised. This is the first time Yuri has ever brought a female friend home. As they talk, Jean's kindness and good manners quickly win the old man's approval. The next day at school, Jean thanks Yuri for his hospitality, joking with him as they walk to class. Kaifa notices Yuri laughing with her and pulls him aside, demanding to know what happened the night before. Yuri explains, and when Kaifa's annoyance becomes clear, he reassures him that their plan has not changed. Before long, Jean and Kaifa are summoned to the principal's office. The Category D boys accuse them of launching an unprovoked attack. Jean protests, but the principal looks doubtful, especially since Kaifa already has a bad reputation. When the blame shifts entirely to Kaifa, Jean remembers Yuri's warning that another incident could get him expelled.
Akuin mo lahat na nangyari sa Section D. Bakit ang tanong mo?
Wanting to protect him, she takes the blame herself. The principal warns that she could face expulsion, but she still refuses to name Kaifa. Afterward, Kaifa quietly thanks her. Outside, Angelo intercepts Jean and scolds her for breaking her promise to stay out of trouble. She apologizes and swears it will not happen again. That night, Kaifa meets Yuri and the others at Yuri's house. He outlines his plan to win Jean's heart and then break it, hoping to drive her away and anger Ares in the process. Yuri listens but cannot hide his unease. The next day, Jean hears a noise behind a garbage bin and finds Mika hiding there. Mika explains that Ares has ordered the Category D boys to punish her, believing she insulted Ella. With Ella away, she has no one to defend her. Jean helps her clean up and brings her to Section E for safety. Kaifa is annoyed, but Jean reminds him that he once helped her. Kaifa responds that he would do anything for her, speaking with a tone that carries a deeper meaning. Yuri notices and struggles to hide his jealousy, while Jean is left surprised and unsure how to respond. Later, Jean walks Mika home. Along the way, Mika opens up about her past with Calix. She recalls how Ella once warned her about another girl, and soon after, she caught Calix getting close to that girl. She ended the relationship immediately, and although Calix has tried to apologize, she has refused to take him back. She asks Jean if he deserves another chance, but Jean advises her to think carefully, then leaves her at her doorstep. That night, Jean confronts Aries about his treatment of Mika, insisting she never insulted Ella. Ella happens to arrive during the conversation, overhears, and walks away looking upset. Aries follows her, trying to explain. The next day, Ella thanks Jean for defending Mika, and says she has made Aries promise to stop bothering her. She also asks Jean to keep Calix away from Mika, fearing he might hurt her again. Jean refuses, saying it is not her place to interfere. Soon after, a boy from Section E presents Mika with flowers in front of everyone, confessing that he has liked her for a long time. Jean advises Mika to think before giving an answer, but Ella steps in, telling Jean to stay out of it. Moments later, Calix appears, apologizing to Mika in public and asking to speak with her privately. Kiefer and Yuri watch Jean closely, noticing she is moved by the gesture. To everyone's surprise, Mika agrees to give Calix another chance, and the class celebrates the reunion. Later, Jean and Kiefer watch the couple from a distance as Calix shouts with joy.
Mahal na mahal kita, Mika!
Kiefer uses the moment to tell Jean he wishes he could have something like that with her. Embarrassed, she walks away without responding. In the bathroom, Jean notices messages scrawled on a door and gets an idea. She shows Cinco and David a video she recorded in the girls' bathroom, which clearly captures Freya insulting Ella. That evening, Jean presents the video to Aries and demands that he punish Freya. Aries refuses, saying he knows she only wants revenge. He walks away, leaving her frustrated as her plan falls apart. The next morning, Jean rides her bike to school when a boy in a car pulls over to ask for directions. She helps him, and he drives off just as Yuri arrives, curious about what happened. Jean simply says the boy was lost, and the two continue to school together. Once there, Mika thanks Jean for helping her make the right choice and hands her a letter for Calix. Jean delivers it, and Calix nervously opens it while his classmates look on. Moments later, he shouts with joy, Mika wants to get back together. Overcome with happiness, he hugs Jean, who urges him to go see Mika immediately. Kiefer and Yuri watch from a distance, both pleased with the result. During PE, Sections A and D train together. Jean quickly outruns everyone, but Kiefer trips her to win. She trips him back, and the class waits for his temper to flare. Instead, he chases her playfully, catches her, and in the scramble, accidentally kisses her. The gym falls silent. Aries steps forward to pull her away, but Kiefer refuses to let go. The two tug at her until Kiefer pulls her toward him and kisses her again, right in front of everyone. Later, Kiefer sits in class holding an ice pack after Jean punched him for the kiss. The next day, Jean spots a couple together and freezes, thinking about the incident. She tries to dismiss the idea that Kiefer might actually like her. Cinco notices her distracted look, but before she can respond, she feels unwell and excuses herself to the bathroom. Inside, Raki finds her looking pale. Jean insists she will be fine and says she cannot miss her exam. Raki uses the moment to warn her about Freya's revenge. She reveals that Freya once caused trouble for Cinco, which got him transferred to Section E, and that Aries knew Freya was guilty but protected her because they were secretly involved behind Ella's back. Raki explains that Freya uses this secret to get away with whatever she wants. Shocked, Jean asks about Raki's past with Cinco. Raki admits they once loved each other, but Freya, jealous of their relationship, framed Cinco for theft after he defended Raki, destroying his reputation. Back in class, Jean feels worse. She takes her seat between Kiefer and Yuri, barely able to stay awake. When the exam begins, she struggles to focus and eventually falls asleep. By the time she wakes, the test is over, and her paper is blank. The next day, she checks the results and is stunned to see a high score. She catches Kiefer smirking and realizes he must have filled in her answers. She's even more surprised to find that both Kiefer and Yuri scored almost perfect marks. The following day, Jean finds Cinco alone, complaining about being hungry. He pulls out flour and an egg, asking her to make pancakes. She says she needs tools, but he reveals that the classroom has cooking utensils. Before long, she is cooking while classmates gather to cheer her on. Yuri and Kiefer walk in, surprised by the scene. Kiefer remarks that any boyfriend Jean chooses will be lucky, then adds that he wishes it were him. Flustered, Jean burns a pancake and blames Kiefer, who leaves laughing, while Yuri stays to help her finish cooking. Later, during the break, Cinco sits alone holding a handbag. Curious, Jean asks about it, and he explains that it belongs to Melda, who left it with him while she went to the bathroom. When Melda returns, she immediately accuses him of stealing from her bag and brings over a male classmate to back her up. The boy refuses to believe Cinco's denial and starts a fight. Jean quickly steps in, shoving the boy away, and reminds Melda that she handed the bag to Cinco herself. Melda denies it, and the crowd immediately turns against him, especially the students from Section E, who still remember his past theft accusation. Freya tries to speak, but Jean cuts her off, exposing her for framing Cinco before. A student from Section E then asks Melda how much was stolen, pulls out the exact amount from his pocket, and smugly hands it to her while making a remark about Cinco's wealthy family. Jean's temper flares, but Yuri steps in before she can start a fight and advises her to talk to Cinco first. Cinco insists he was set up, and Jean's class believes him. Meanwhile, at home, Aries confronts Ella, accusing her of framing Cinco. Ella admits it was an act of revenge against Jean for influencing Mika to reconcile with Calix. She also confesses to resenting Jean for winning over the boys of Section E, a position she once held. Aries tells her to ignore the others and focus on him instead. The next day, Jean approaches Kiefer for money to clear Cinco's name. Despite his warning, she takes it to the student who paid Melda, throws it in his face, and declares that Cinco is not a thief. In front of everyone, she claims she stole the money herself. Aries tells her he understands she's protecting Cinco, but never expected her to take the blame. Freya, watching from the sidelines, records the scene and posts the video online. Back in class, Jean is surprised to find her classmates upset. They show her the video, and although Cinco feels guilty, Jean tells him she does not care as long as he is cleared. He hugs her in gratitude, and the class warms to her even more. Kiefer, meanwhile, contacts his hacker friend Eddie to wipe the video from all platforms. The following day, Angelo confronts Jean about the footage. His anger eases when Kiefer assures him the video has been deleted and that Jean only acted to protect Cinco. Later, Jean's grandmother visits with her uncle's wife, who brings up the incident. Her grandmother refuses to believe the accusation and defends her wholeheartedly. Feeling frustrated, Jean takes a walk and stops at a restaurant. Some girls from Section A tell the waiter she is a thief, prompting him to ask her to leave. Before she can respond, Yuri arrives, offers to pay the restaurant's full day's earnings, and orders the girls to be thrown out. Jean is stunned to learn that the restaurant belongs to Yuri's family. They sit down for lunch, and Jean thanks him. The mood shifts when Kiefer pulls up outside and sees them laughing together, his expression darkening. The tension hints at a love triangle beginning to take shape. As they eat, Jean shares her life story with Yuri, who tells her about his family in Japan and his younger sister. He keeps glancing at her, and when she notices, he brushes it off and changes the subject, asking about her connection to Cinco. She says he feels like a brother. When he asks about her past relationships, she explains that one ended because the guy was a jerk and the other ended due to illness and a coma. Privately, Yuri begins to realize he likes her, though he knows Kiefer would be furious if he found out. He tells her about a past one-sided crush, and she teases that the girl must be standing right behind her. They share a laugh, and when Jean mentions needing to go home for her bike, Yuri suggests spending the day together before taking her home later. She agrees, unaware that Kiefer is still very much a looming presence in her life. Meanwhile, Kiefer is in a foul mood and looking for someone to take it out on. Tension rises within the group when Eddie, the so-called genius hacker, admits he cannot break into the school system or access the security cameras to find the real thief. Doubt spreads, and whispers question whether Eddie's reputation is deserved. Someone suggests checking the cameras in person, but Kiefer shuts the idea down, warning that security will make them regret it if they are caught. He scraps the plan and announces they will move on to a second strategy, one he keeps to himself. When someone brings up Yuri's name, Kiefer snaps and mocks them for not being satisfied with him. As a way to punish them, he challenges them to a basketball game. While Kiefer deals with his frustration, Yuri takes a gentler approach. He offers Jean a ride home, on her bike. She is irritated, having expected a car, and reluctantly climbs on. Nervous about falling, she holds onto his stomach, which makes him laugh, before shifting her hands to his shoulder. The bike wobbles, and she falls, scraping her leg. Without hesitation, Yuri ties his handkerchief around the injury and walks the bike all the way home, staying by her side. At her house, Yuri lifts her inside, insisting she is exhausted. Jean's grandmother appears and scolds him for drawing attention from the neighbors, but when he offers to help, she warms to him and invites him to stay. He tends to Jean's wound so carefully that she barely feels the pain, something her grandmother immediately notices. With a knowing look, she asks if they are dating. Jean says no, but her grandmother insists they look like a couple. Yuri blushes, while Aries becomes irritated and tries to push him out. The grandmother, unimpressed, twists Aries' ear and scolds him. During dinner, she questions Yuri about his family and is impressed to learn he comes from a wealthy household in Japan. She tells Jean she should learn to cook for him, convinced they look like they will marry one day. Yuri is quietly delighted, but Jean's attention drifts when she receives a message from Kiefer. She ignores it for the moment, focusing on Yuri instead. After dinner, Jean walks Yuri to the door. A car waits for him outside, and they share a laugh before parting. Yuri leaves smiling, while Jean finally checks Kiefer's message. The plan has changed. The next morning, one of Kiefer's crew blocks Jean from entering the classroom. She distracts him with food and slips past, only to find the group cornering a girl with a backpack and roughing up her boyfriend in an attempt to force a confession. Jean intervenes, telling them this will only create more problems and that kindness will work better. The girl tends to her boyfriend and seems ready to confess, but fear keeps her silent. Kiefer, losing patience, orders his guys to hold Jean while he goes after the boyfriend. Before he can, the girl blurts out that Cinco is innocent and admits someone told her to frame him, though she refuses to reveal who. At that moment, Raki steps forward and announces she recorded the confession. Jean realizes this is Kiefer's second plan. Raki says she did it for Jean, though Cinco insists she came for him, earning cheers from the group. They hand the recording to their hacker, who uploads it to the bully's account so it appears she admitted to everything herself. The girl is furious and accuses Rory, the only one with her password, but he ignores her, leaving her scrambling to find the real culprit. Later, Kiefer tells Jean that he has cleared Cinco's name and demands thanks or payment. When she refuses, he gives her 3 options: pay him $25,000, thank him properly, or bring him food every day until graduation. She tries to bargain, but he takes her lunch and runs off before she can stop him. Turning around, Jean finds Yuri waiting with a meal. They head to their usual spot where Cinco and David are already sitting. She asks about Mika and Calix, and they say the couple is in the next room. Jean shares her food with everyone, while Yuri, touched, surprises her with an expensive dish. When she struggles to eat it, he feeds her himself. She then offers it to the others, worried that Cinco has been eyeing it. As they eat, the boys pose a question. If Kiefer and Aries were to fight, whose side would she take? Jean hesitates, but Yuri tells her to keep eating and think it over, adding that her answer will be important. The next morning, on her way to school, Jean is stopped by a new boy with striking blue eyes and flawless English. He offers her a ride, but she refuses, deciding that good looks and fluent English are not enough reason to accept. Moments later, Yuri pulls up in his sleek car and offers her a lift. She agrees, then asks why he is passing her street when he does not live nearby. He claims he was running errands, though it is clear he came for her. When he offers to carry her bags, she refuses, explaining that the food inside is for Kiefer. Right on cue, Kiefer appears, snatches the bag, and dashes into the classroom. As expected, the hungry group dives in without hesitation. Jean, frustrated, blames Kiefer for taking it. The teacher soon arrives and announces preparations for the upcoming school festival, a week filled with events, games, and competitions, including a beauty contest that the school bully has won for years. Each department has its own responsibilities, and Section E is assigned to guard and clean. Kiefer calls the task humiliating and refuses to participate, while Jean pushes for them to join and even adds something new. The class is split. Some side with Kiefer out of loyalty or fear, others support Jean because of the food and the opportunity to meet girls. The teacher leaves them to settle the matter themselves. During the break, Jean walks with Cinco, who suggests they have lunch alone. Realizing he is flirting, she calls Yuri instead and makes plans to meet him. On the way, she picks up Kiefer's lunchbox to return it, but Kiefer blocks her path and calls the others over to keep her from leaving. Jean manages to end up beside Yuri, ignoring Kiefer entirely. When she offers to cook for the group, Kiefer snaps, telling her to stay away from the kitchen equipment, which belongs to their friend Aman. Aman is absent because he works at his father's restaurant, and Jean learns the family is struggling with debt. Determined to help, she insists they visit. Kiefer warns her not to interfere, but the others agree, leaving him no choice but to go along. At the restaurant, Aman confides that he may quit school if the debt is not repaid. Jean suggests they work for free to help. Business picks up quickly, especially with Yui's popularity drawing in customers. When Jean tells him to smile, the crowd reacts enthusiastically. Jealous, Kiefer starts flexing his muscles, and the two end up competing for attention. The rivalry comes to a halt when Kiefer burns his hand. Jean treats the injury, and for a moment his mood softens, though he quickly shifts the blame onto her for bringing them there in the first place. She thanks him for helping Cinco, but their conversation is interrupted when Aries, Ella, the bully, and their group arrive. Outside, the bully mocks Jean for working as a waitress, and her friend taunts Kiefer about his downfall.
Nag-waitress ka na lang talaga.
Waitress.
Naghihirap na ba kayo?
Jean fires back, calling out their spoiled behavior, and pulls Mika forward to support her. Kiefer steps in, placing a hand on Jean's shoulder, which leaves her unexpectedly flustered. Back inside, they continue taking orders, with Kiefer teasing Jean by calling her my love and my dear. In the kitchen, Calix warns Kiefer that their plan might put Jean in danger and suggests removing her from it. Kiefer pauses, considering the idea. Meanwhile, Rory corners Jean and asks her out. She is caught off guard, but before she can respond, David interrupts, scolding Rory. The tension between them rises until Jean pulls David aside. Rory calls after her, reminding her he is waiting for an answer. Inside, David suddenly asks if she is dating Rory, shocking everyone. Kiefer demands to know if she likes him. She denies it and quickly leaves before they can press further. Suspicious, Kiefer begins to suspect Rory has feelings for Jean. Later, Jean asks Cinco about Rory and David's history. Cinco explains that they once fought at an abandoned factory, a clash that left David injured while Rory stood holding a pipe. Although no one could prove Rory caused the injury, the incident damaged David's reputation. At the time, he was department head, but his hesitation to act made students see him as a coward. When Kiefer took over, he became the leader who finally stood up for them. Later, Cinco teases Jean about liking Rory. When she denies it, he smirks and asks if she likes him instead. She playfully threatens to steal his pie, and he sticks his tongue out at her in response. That night, Yuri walked Jean home, saying it was late and she should relax because he felt protective of her. He reminded her not to forget their plans, then joked that his car would belong to her one day before driving away with a smile. Almost as soon as he left, Rory appeared, startling Jean so much she thought she had seen a ghost. He told her he had asked Aries for her number, but Aries refused. Rory claimed he wanted to do things properly and even planned to propose, which left Jean shocked at how fast things were moving. Before she could respond, Aries arrived and interrupted, firmly saying there would be no engagement. Rory argued that they were friends, but Aries replied that was exactly why he would not allow it. He then turned to Jean, telling her she could not date or go out with anyone, and reminded her that her boyfriend was still in the hospital while she was spending time with other men. The next morning, Jean left the house cautiously, checking to see if Rory was following her. Instead, she ran into Kiefer, who teased her about expecting someone else. When she asked why he was there, he said he was taking her to meet the group since she was running late. She got into his luxury car, unable to keep her eyes off it. While eating breakfast on the way, he stole a bite and accidentally bit her finger, then joked that she owed him for skipping his own breakfast to pick her up. Again, he asked if she liked Rory, warning that he hated liars. Jean denied it, but the question lingered in her mind. At the restaurant, a man announced that his father had recovered and would now manage the business again, with his mother helping out as well. This meant a man could return to school, and the old staff could be rehired, giving the group more time to study, though they admitted they rarely did. To celebrate, a man invited them to cook at school and asked Jean to help. She agreed, but first said she wanted breakfast. Kiefer told Mika to bring her a menu and said Jean would be paying for herself, only to laugh and say he would cover it. Yuri stayed quiet, feeling as though she was slipping further away from him. The following day, Jean was told that someone was waiting outside and would hang her out to dry if she took too long. Expecting Kiefer, she stormed out ready to argue, but instead found 4 well-dressed men who wanted to take her shopping for school supplies. One of them complimented her looks, and Kiefer, arriving on the scene, agreed, calling her beautiful. As they headed to the car, Yuri watched from a distance, jealousy clear in his eyes. At the shop, they bought an enormous amount of food. Jean carried heavy bags and complained that no one was helping her. Yuri stepped forward to assist, but Kiefer took the bags first. When Yuri offered to carry the rest, Jean refused, saying she could manage. The next morning, she was so tired she nearly fell asleep at her desk. Yuri arrived without his glasses, and she told him he looked great, saying he suited either look. Watching from nearby, Kiefer felt a twinge of jealousy. In class, Jean tried to wake Cinco, but a man told her it was pointless. While cleaning the kitchen, she noticed a box labeled Keller and asked about it. The others explained that Keller was a kind girl who became dangerous when angry, once injuring another student so badly, she was nearly expelled before being transferred. Jean wondered how she had returned, but Kiefer told her to mind her own business. Leaning closer, he called her kitten before walking away. While taking out the trash, Jean noticed one of the boys acting suspiciously. She checked the spot he had been and found something unusual, but lunchtime came before she could ask questions. Yuri asked if she was okay, while Kiefer continued to watch her closely. Then David appeared, injured, and the boys quickly surrounded him, telling the girls to stay back. Jean and Mika tried to listen but learned nothing. Still suspicious, Jean waited until the group was distracted, then pulled David aside and asked directly. He admitted that Rory had said he planned to propose to her, and David could not stand it, so they fought. Jean offered to help fix the situation, but David refused. Kiefer told the others to get her out of there before she made things worse. Cinco was assigned to escort her and joked about the dishes waiting for her. While they worked, Jean tried to press for answers, but he claimed he did not gossip. Eventually, he admitted the boys were planning something to get justice for David, then begged her not to ask any more questions before slipping away. Later, Kiefer found her and asked what she was doing there. She threw the question back at him, and he reminded her that she was in the men's bathroom. When she explained that the women's bathroom was out of order, he returned to his earlier question. Did she like Rory? When she denied it, he stepped closer and told her to say it to his face. She refused and asked why it mattered so much to him. Embarrassed, he avoided answering and instead accused her of caring about him. Jean insisted she was only trying to ease the tension between the guys. Later that day, the group warned Jean to stay out of their business. But her curiosity got the better of her. Pretending to be busy with a man, she slipped away and quietly followed them into an abandoned building. She crouched behind a stack of wood, but nearly screamed when someone grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth. Inside, the guys called out for Rory, who soon appeared with his crew, flexing and showing off. A fight with David was moments away, both ready to finally settle their rivalry. David shrugged off his jacket, preparing to swing, when a voice from above cut through the tension. Ram, the gang leader they had clashed with before, stepped forward. With a smug grin, he revealed he had brought Jean as a surprise for everyone. Pulling her into view, Ram asked for her name. The guys warned him to let her go, but he refused. Jean's response was quick. She slammed her head into his and bolted, leaping down from the platform and sprinting for safety. The scene erupted into chaos as everyone gave chase. The truth was, Jean had been caught in the middle of a fight with Rory's gang and became a target after challenging them. She fought back with surprising speed and determination, catching everyone off guard. Later, she could barely recall the details and wondered how she had even ended up there. The guys told her she could have been seriously hurt. Kiefer's worry was obvious, and they made it clear they didn't want her risking herself again. Cinco teased that she looked like she was flying through the air during the scuffle. Jean apologized to him as they left the rival gang's territory, but also blamed the others for dragging her into trouble. Determined to clear the air, she asked to speak with Rory alone. He agreed, and the group walked away, except for Kiefer, who lingered nearby. Rory told her to ignore what David had said. Jean made it clear she wasn't interested in dating anyone, emphasizing it wasn't personal. Rory accepted her answer, though she could see the disappointment in his face as he walked away. David offered to walk her home for safety, with Kiefer following close behind, still visibly upset. Sensing he wanted to say something, Jean apologized, but David brushed it off, saying he only cared that she wasn't hurt. When she asked about Rory's past, he explained that Rory had once been a leader until someone challenged and beat him. Since then, Rory fought more cautiously, sometimes using a pipe for defense, which caused distrust among the group. Jean appreciated that they wanted to protect her, even from Rory. Still, she wondered if her feelings toward relationships might ever change, though she continued to deny any possibility regarding Kiefer. That night, she returned home late and claimed she had hit her head. Angelo announced she would now be sharing a room with Aries, insisting they get along. Soon after, she discovered a pregnancy test and jumped to the wrong conclusion, assuming it was hers and that Kiefer was the father. The truth emerged quickly. It belonged to Andrew's girlfriend. The rumor spread like wildfire. Angelo confronted Kiefer, and the misunderstanding escalated. Concerned for the family's reputation, they called everyone together to settle the matter. A doctor was brought in and confirmed that Jean was not pregnant. Relief followed, but so did lingering embarrassment. Kiefer could not stop laughing, which only made things worse. Jean stormed off, but he followed to apologize. She refused to forgive him, accusing him of always creating trouble. When he persisted, she punched him, still angry about how he handled the situation.
JJ!
By the next day, word had spread that she had left a mark on Kiefer's face. While she advised Calix on how to treat Mika better, others whispered and gossiped about her. Kiefer later revealed the entire pregnancy scare had been a prank, sparking yet another argument between them. Despite their constant bickering, Jean eventually sat beside him, still wondering if he would ever offer a genuine apology. The group met to plan for the festival, starting with Freya's team, who proved far less prepared than they claimed. Jean's own section was even less organized, so they decided to focus on collecting masks and guarding the area. Then the teacher announced a twist. Boys would dress as girls, and girls as boys, with each section selecting the most attractive participant. Freya convinced Section E to join, but secretly planned to make them look bad. Tensions rose further when the group began arguing over the food a man was cooking. Jean stepped in to restore order while Kiefer stayed close. She noticed Andrew sitting alone, barely touching his food. She urged him to eat, but he joked that he was the one who was pregnant. Annoyed, she took his plate away. Moments later, Andrew's girlfriend from another section appeared, begging him to acknowledge their child. Andrew refused. Jean scolded the girl for confronting him in public, but Andrew unexpectedly defended her. Jean misunderstood, thinking he was protecting his girlfriend at her expense, and told him to take responsibility. Later, she learned the girl was an orphan with no family support, and Andrew was keeping his distance to avoid taking responsibility. Jean stayed to comfort her, but the weight of the situation lingered in her mind. In class, Andrew's continued indifference made Jean wonder how to reach him. She thought about asking Angelo, though that could be complicated, and even considered Yuri, uncertain if he would agree. Finally, she settled on David, believing he might succeed where others could not. She found David and joined him for lunch. He teased her about it being a date, and when Cinco overheard, he turned it into a rumor. At first no one believed it, but before long the entire class assumed it was true. Kiefer, among others, was clearly bothered. Later, Jean, David, and Cinco went to an amusement park. They screamed on rides, laughed, and enjoyed themselves until Cinco's motion sickness sparked a playful chase through the park. Taking a break for food, Jean ended up sitting alone with David. She planned to ask if his girlfriend was pregnant, suspecting Andrew might have overheard something that was holding him back. Before she could speak, David revealed that some classmates had been secretly watching them. To expose them, he told Jean to close her eyes. When she did, everyone jumped out of hiding. David used the moment to touch her cheek and lean in for a kiss, but the crowd rushed forward to stop him, reminding him he already had a girlfriend. Arguments broke out. Cinco and the others scolded him, but Yuri's anger stood out most, especially with Kiefer already close to Jean. The group then moved to a haunted house. Jean hesitated, but they convinced her to go in for pictures. Inside, the scares came quickly. She clung to Cinco, who was trying to keep his composure. When one friend ran off and disappeared, the tension rose. Then Jean spotted a vampire and panicked. Kiefer rushed to her side, promising he would not leave her. They eventually made it outside, but Jean bolted again, forcing the others to call out for her. Kiefer found her and pulled her into a hug. She hugged him back, and his feelings were obvious. Friends soon arrived, breaking the moment and teasing them. Jean wanted to go on more rides, and Kiefer reluctantly agreed to make her happy. While waiting in line, Jean noticed Yuri chatting easily with the people ahead. They cut the line using charm, and Kiefer matched them effortlessly with just a smile. On the Ferris wheel, Kiefer insisted on sitting beside her, much to the others' annoyance. Jean suspected Yuri might be there to confess to someone, but he dismissed the idea. When the ride stopped high in the air, Jean panicked and clung to Kiefer until it started moving again. Elsewhere, students enjoyed the city while Jean and her group watched fireworks. Her excitement lit up her face, and Kiefer could not stop watching her. When she realized he still had her phone, they argued until she stumbled into his arms. He refused to let go, not wanting Yuri to see her with someone else. She left in frustration as the others laughed. Later, she visited Andrew's house and met his father, who called Andrew over. Andrew explained that his family lived in poverty, and he felt uncomfortable accepting Grace's expensive gifts. He admitted he was afraid of responsibility now that she was pregnant. Grace appeared in tears and ran off. Jean and Kiefer followed her to a bridge, where she seemed ready to jump. Kiefer shocked everyone by telling them to wait. His calm approach worked. Grace faltered, then collapsed into Andrew's arms as he promised not to leave her. The next day, Yuri noticed Jean's troubled expression. Meanwhile, Felix, angry over problems his brother faced because of Andrew, hid out on the basketball court. Jean invited him to join the festival basketball game, but he refused due to his rivalry with Andrew. Yuri grew jealous of how close they seemed. Later, Jean found Cinco at a mechanic shop, joking about entering a costume contest. Their fun was cut short when Ram's gang kidnapped her. Ram sent a video taunting the group, saying only 4 could come for her. Kiefer, Cinco, David, and Yuri set out for the hideout. On the way, Yuri asked Kiefer about his feelings for Jean, but Kiefer denied them. Inside, Ram held Jean hostage. A fight erupted, and both sides called for reinforcements. Kiefer reached Jean but was attacked. Ram mocked him, making her cry. Kiefer reassured her, but Ram kept taunting until Jean broke free and struck him. When he struck her, something inside her broke. She fought back with all her strength until Kiefer pulled her close, gently wiping away her tears and placing a soft kiss on her forehead, quietly admitting that his actions were driven by jealousy. Yuri's expression darkened when he saw them together. They took Jean to the hospital, where Kiefer stayed by her side. Her uncle arrived and pulled Kiefer aside while Ari sat next to her bed. When she woke, the first name she called was Kiefer's.
Si Kiefer.
Ari's father took him away for another private conversation. Friends came in, and Cinco cried dramatically until she told him to stop. Angelo scolded Aries for not protecting her, pointing out that Kiefer, who was not even family, was the one who saved her. Her uncle warned Kiefer to take care of her. Then Aries was stunned when Jean's mother walked in. She hugged him, but he pushed her away, questioning why she had returned. She announced she was getting married. He mocked her, asking how many men she needed before she was satisfied, then quietly asked if she had told Jean the family secret. His darkening expression made it clear the secret was serious. The next day, Jean walked into school with her head down, but her lively group of friends refused to let her stay gloomy. They handed her a cute dessert to cheer her up, and she smiled, at least until she tried to eat and realized her hands were too sore. Without hesitation, Yuri stepped in, massaging them far longer than necessary, smirking as he remarked that his hands were tired too. While still holding her hands, the conversation drifted back to the upcoming festival. The guys teased her about teaming up with Cinco for the costume contest. She learned they had once been in a band, and suggested they reunite for the singing competition. Just then, Kiefer walked in, spotted Yuri holding her hands, and instantly disliked what he saw. Without explanation, he told Jean they needed to talk, and Yuri knew exactly why. Kiefer led her to a hidden music room lined with photos, trophies, and mementos from past events. Jean was fascinated until her gaze landed on a picture of her uncle. Kiefer explained that her uncle had once been the legendary leader of their section. Then he asked if she wanted her picture on the wall now that she was one of them. He laughed, and to her dismay, her heart reacted. She thanked him awkwardly before they returned to class. Back in the classroom, the guys threw her a welcome-back party filled with singing and wild dancing. Yuri sang, others spun belts like they were in a nightclub, and Jean laughed until her stomach hurt, especially when Cinco joined in. Then Kiefer took off his jacket, locked eyes with her, and danced with playful confidence. Flustered, she teased that they could all have a future as backup dancers. The group soon divided festival duties. Jean wondered how Cinco would manage both the dance and costume contests, but the others assured her it was fine. They encouraged Yuri to join the singing contest, but he only said he would think about it. When asked if she would go home with Yuri or Kiefer, Jean sidestepped the question and decided to walk alone. The following day, she stopped for ice cream and was approached by a man who claimed he had once been married to her mother. He apologized for the way he had treated her when she was young, explaining that after leaving her mother and starting a new family, he had been haunted by guilt. Jean didn't even remember him. Shaken, she ran off. In a small town where nothing goes unnoticed, Yuri happened to drive by in his expensive car. He pulled over and hugged her, listening as she admitted there were parts of her past she couldn't remember. Yuri told her that sometimes forgetting painful memories could be a blessing. She wiped her tears, then noticed the tissue in her hand was the same one Kiefer had given her during the kidnapping incident, a memory that had never faded. She knew why. But instead of dwelling on it, she glanced at Yuri's red hair, ignoring the comfort right beside her. At the festival, Jean cheered louder than anyone. David and Calix teased her, trying to steal her food, but she shooed them away. Left alone, she bought ice cream and spotted a prize game. Kiefer filmed her from a distance, noticing the teddy bear she wanted. He tried to win it but failed, promising instead that he would win the music competition for her. That night, she and Kiefer shared a security shift. She hummed her favorite song, but when he asked about her mother, her mood darkened. He said he would want to talk about her, but before she could respond, a classmate stumbled toward them and a creepy doll appeared nearby. Both screamed and ran, Kiefer included. The next day, the school hosted a basketball match against a rival team. Sitting between Yuri and Kiefer, Jean joked about being surrounded by handsome guys. The game shifted when she convinced the coach to let Felix play. At the buzzer, he scored the winning shot, and the team erupted in celebration. Later in the dorm, the boys rehearsed for the dance contest. Cinco's nerves vanished the moment his crush, Raki, walked in, and his performance instantly improved. Jean watched, feeling a little single herself. Her ex appeared asking for a favor, but she ignored him. Felix thanked her for helping him get into the game and invited her to a secret party. The next day, the dance competition began. Their dorm's team gave a strong performance, and the festival host, who was also a known bully, initially supported them because they were classmates. But when she heard their team name, Jean's Warriors, chosen by Kiefer and Eddie, she mocked them. Jean was speechless, but the crowd's loud cheers made it clear the performance was a hit. The singing competition followed. Raki impressed the audience, while Jean stood in the crowd holding hands with Andrew and another friend. When Kiefer's turn came, he sang the very song she had once told him about. The moment stirred old memories, and she realized her feelings for him. His flawless performance won over both the judges and the crowd. Afterward, Yuri casually told her that Kiefer had chosen the song for her. When Kiefer approached, smirking, and asked for a thank you, she mumbled it and slipped away. That night, while on security duty with Yuri, Jean admitted she had feelings for someone who had hurt her before. Yuri told her that you cannot control your heart. She teased him about sounding like an expert, asking if he was in love. He admitted he was, but the girl didn't realize it. Jean advised him to move on, but he shook his head, saying she was special. The next day, Cinco turned heads at the costume competition, dressed as a girl and drawing laughter from the crowd. Jean, in men's clothes, was distracted by a message from her ex's mother. Before she could respond, Kiefer took her phone, answered the call, and kept whatever was said to himself. As the festival continued, trouble struck just before Yuri's solo performance. His music had mysteriously gone missing, and the school bully lingered nearby, clearly enjoying his frustration. Before the tension could escalate, his friends handed him a guitar. With steady composure, Yuri stepped onto the stage and delivered a heartfelt romantic ballad that made couples in the audience instinctively pull each other close. Kiefer leaned toward Jean and made a quiet remark about the song being for the girl Yuri loved. The words unsettled her, prompting her to slip out of the venue without drawing attention. From the stage, Yuri's gaze followed her as she walked away. Outside, Jean found Grace in tears. Grace explained that Andrew was caring for her and their baby, but refused to rekindle their relationship, even though she still loved him. Fired up, Jean marched back inside and confronted Andrew in front of everyone. Overwhelmed, he confessed that he believed his ex would never forgive him. At that moment, she stepped forward from the crowd and told him she still loved him and would forgive him if he returned. They embraced, reconciling on the spot, leaving the rest of the audience in an unexpected hush. Still unsettled, Jean called her ex's mother and went to the hospital. When he woke, the first thing he asked about was her. Jean could not remember what had happened between them. He took her hand and pleaded with her to stay, but panic set in and she bolted from the room. His sister chased her down, accusing her of causing his pain. Jean left the hospital even more confused than before. Back at school, Cinco was furious that she had missed their competition, and Kiefer scolded her for ignoring his calls. Exhausted and frustrated, Jean snapped that she could not be everywhere for everyone. She shut herself in her room, only for Yuri to refuse to leave her alone. Sitting beside her, he began to teach her guitar chords. The two leaned closer together, the air thick with unspoken tension. Jean caught herself staring at him just as he began to lean in. The moment shattered when Kiefer appeared at the door holding a trophy. Their band had just won, and he had come to give her the award as promised. But when he saw them together, he froze. Jean's heart pounded as she realized she might be crossing a boundary. She grabbed her bag and rushed out of the room. Yuri and Kiefer exchanged a loaded glance, no word spoken, but the challenge between them was unmistakable. Wandering into unfamiliar streets, Jean's mind felt hazy. Fragments of memory began to surface. She recalled Rory getting too close, a spark of anger flashing in her chest, followed by a wave of fear. If her recollection was correct, it could change everything. Tugging at her hair in frustration, she fought to remember more. Then the pieces fell into place. She remembered running after Kiefer had caught her with Yuri. The next day, she joined Felix at the party he had been anticipating for weeks. He thanked her for helping him get back into basketball, but as soon as they arrived, something felt wrong. The guest's behavior was odd, and the air was thick with unease. Rory appeared, grinning like a host who had already had too much to drink. His steps were unsteady, and his voice carried over the loud, chaotic music. Jean tried to make conversation with someone, but it was as if she were invisible in the crowd. Rory grabbed the microphone, thanked Felix for helping them win, and in an instant, people swarmed to take pictures with Felix. Meanwhile, Jean's hunger grew. She spotted a group eating in the corner, asked them to pretend she wasn't there, and quietly grabbed a plate of food before slipping away from the noise. As she moved through the crowd, Her eyes landed on Mika with an unfamiliar man. Without hesitation, she approached, accusing Mika of betrayal and warning that Calix would not take the news well if he found out. The man turned, and to her shock, it was Calix himself, disguised in dirty clothes and a fake mustache. He explained that their division had been banned from attending, so he had to sneak in. If Kiefer learned about it, he would not let it slide, and besides, Calix could not stand Rory. He told her to stay for 30 more minutes, then take Felix and leave before trouble started. Jean agreed, handed her food to Mika, and headed to the bathroom. When she came out, a sleazy man approached her. Before she could react, Rory stepped in, playing the part of a friendly host. His smooth words made her lower her guard, and he handed her a drink. She took a sip, and the room began to spin. Downstairs, she found Felix beaten and slumped on the floor. He managed to warn her that they had been deceived and the entire situation was a trap, urging her to escape. Before she could react, her vision blurred and everything faded into darkness. She awoke later with no memory of what had happened next. The house was eerily clean and quiet. A young man who looked vaguely familiar, reminding her of Kiefer, told her to check on Kiefer's younger brother and mentioned that Calix was outside by the pool. Outside, the group lounged around while Felix still looked shaken from the night before. Jean rushed to him, but he insisted they had actually saved her. Yuri and Kiefer appeared behind her, with Kiefer speaking in a cold tone as he questioned her reason for attending the party. She admitted she could not remember. Kiefer then explained that Calix had sent for them after she vanished, and his concern had been great enough to make him gather his men for a rescue. Jean's temper rose as she demanded to know who had changed her clothes and whether they had looked at her. Kiefer replied with a smug remark, telling her there was nothing special to see. She glared at him, caught in the middle of the troublemakers before her. The guys then filled in the missing details. They had searched the party and only realized she was gone when Aries arrived. Felix confessed that Rory had taken her, but only Rory's friends knew where. Aries threatened them until they revealed the location, then told the others to stay back because things were about to get violent. While Felix was carried out, Aries and his men confronted Rory's crew. Upstairs, they found Aries with Rory pinned by the collar, punching him again and again. Aries growled that Rory had tried to touch her. He dressed her himself, cousin's duty or not, then ordered them to get her out before things escalated further. Kiefer had carried her back to his place. In the present, Yuri mocked Kiefer, accusing him of having feelings for her. Kiefer dismissed the remark, but Yuri persisted, calling him a coward for not admitting the truth and urging him to remove her from the situation before she got hurt. Kiefer denied it, insisting he was sticking to his plan, his grip tightening on his cup until it cracked. Yuri remembered their watch duty, when Jean had asked him directly if he liked her. He had told her he could not lie, could not confess, and would not deny it either. He did not want to lose her. She had let it drop, but the tension had lingered. Now, Kiefer sulked while Jean tended to Felix. Felix apologized for dragging her into trouble, and she forgave him. Kiefer's younger brother called them in for breakfast. Everyone went inside except Felix, who stayed behind to wait for a doctor. Before joining the others, Jean asked Yuri how Kiefer had hurt his hand. Yuri told her he had smashed a glass in anger and warned her to stay away from Kiefer's brother, saying he was worse. She doubted that could be true. Later, before dinner, Jean finally met the youngest brother. He wasted no time teasing Kiefer about bringing his girlfriend home. The boy was sharp-tongued and even dating Yuri's sister, which earned him teasing in return. Jean grew anxious to leave, but Kiefer assured her that her family knew where she was. Yuri handed the boy a phone, making a light-hearted remark before reminding the group that they had been the ones encouraging him in the first place. The following day at school, with the final class before vacation, the atmosphere was cheerful. Jean playfully teased Cinco about his exam results. When he dismissed her comments, she challenged him, betting that he could not have scored perfectly. If he had, she promised to buy him dinner. He declined, so she raised the stakes by offering to dye her hair instead. Cinco reminded her that dyed hair was against school rules, prompting her to question how Yuri managed it, only to learn that his hair color was natural. Cinco then smirked and escalated the challenge further. If he had achieved a perfect score, she would have to choose her favorite among them and kiss him in front of everyone. Swept up in the competitive spirit, Jean accepted without hesitation. That night, Jean attends a children's costume party where Cinco is happily blending in with the crowd. As she looks around, she spots a boy who looks exactly like Kiefer's younger brother. Thinking it must be a coincidence, she turns away, only to see the real one standing behind her. His cold, distant attitude makes the encounter tense, and moments later Kiefer arrives, exchanging sharp words with his brother. The atmosphere between them makes it clear there is deeper family tension. Kiefer soon walks off, and Cinco returns with candy he has taken from a little girl. Moments later, the girl's father approaches, but instead of confronting Cinco, his attention turns uncomfortably toward Jean. Before she can react, Kiefer steps in, his presence enough to make the man back away. Once the man leaves, Kiefer tells Jean that Rory has been expelled for his past actions and warns her to stay away from him. He then leads her to a quieter spot away from the crowd. When they return, Kiefer heads off to get her a drink. While she waits, a stranger approaches and abruptly pushes away another man who is about to bother her. The stranger has piercing blue eyes and shares Jean's last name. He hints that she will have questions later, takes her number without further explanation, and disappears just as quickly as he arrived. Kiefer returns with the drink, and they sit together. Jean notices a girl watching him from across the room, and feels a flicker of jealousy but keeps it to herself. Nearby, Cinco flirts with someone, prompting Jean to tease him about how Raki would react. She tells Kiefer he is free to dance if he wants to, and another girl quickly seizes the chance to pull him onto the dance floor. Jean is left swaying awkwardly alone until Kiefer returns, and asks her to dance with him instead. The music shifts to a slow song, and the space between them closes. Kiefer's hand rests lightly on her waist, and she leans against him, caught in the warmth of the moment. When he tilts her chin and presses a kiss to her forehead, Jean realizes her feelings for him undeniable. Just as he leans closer, the scene cuts to a reminder. Cinco had scored perfectly on the exam, which means Jean still owes him a public kiss with her chosen favorite. Later that night, Jean arrives home, her thoughts full of the excitement that comes with a new crush, every glance and every touch feeling charged with meaning. At the door, she and Kiefer linger, exchanging a quiet goodnight before he leans in once more to kiss her forehead. She is still smiling when Aries appears, angry about her late return, but she brushes off his scolding. In her room, her phone lights up with a message from Kiefer asking if she is all right. She smiles and wishes him sweet dreams, telling herself to calm down. Another message arrives from Yuri asking about her vacation plans, which she leaves unanswered. Then a final message comes from an unknown sender, asking her to meet after school on Monday, with the promise of information about her family and her brother. The thrill of the evening fades into a mix of excitement and unease. The next day, exam results are posted in the hallway, drawing a crowd from every department. Students press forward to check their scores, creating a noisy, excited atmosphere. One of Jean's classmates approaches, asking to borrow money. He keeps flattering her until she reluctantly agrees to bring it the next day, but only after she checks her own results. The crowd is packed too tightly, so the classmate pushes through and clears a path for her. Jean finally reaches the board and scans the list until she finds her name, 84.5. She smiles in relief, proud of her score, until she remembers her bet with Cinco. Her mood sinks when she sees he is the only one in the department with a perfect score. Cinco appears almost on cue, smirking as he reminds her of their deal before walking away. Yuri comes over, clearly annoyed that she ignored his message, but Jean sidesteps the conversation and hurries off. In class, she accidentally bumps into Kiefer. Flustered from the night before, she tries to slip away but spots Cinco and uses him as an excuse to escape. The two whisper to each other, unaware that the rest of the class is straining to listen. Cinco then announces their bet to everyone, sparking chaos as the students compete for the chance to be kissed. Kiefer quickly steps in, telling them to stop and let her choose freely. Jean walks toward Yuri, making him confident she will choose him, but she keeps going and surprises everyone by kissing David on the cheek instead. David barely reacts, still half asleep, and Jean tells him she'll explain later as the others crowd around in playful outrage. Before the teasing can escalate, Jean's phone buzzes with a message from Ren, asking her to meet at the mall and warning her not to tell anyone. She rushes there, but Ren calls to cancel, claiming she broke the rules by bringing people. He warns that the guys are watching him and insists he needs privacy. When Jean asks about Felix's brother, he says the man has changed. This shocks her. She thought he was dead. She then asks if he is her brother, but Ren cryptically replies that her brother has been with her the whole time, and she just has not realized it yet. Tears fill her eyes, and the guys arrive moments later, demanding to know who upset her. She accuses them of spying and ruining the meeting, then admits she was supposed to meet Ren. The name makes them freeze. Back home, they gather around old photos, and Jean points out Ren. The truth finally comes out. Years ago, Yuri, Kiefer, Aries, and Ren were close friends. One day, Ren suggested they go for a drive, even though none of them had much experience. They took Aries' brother's car without permission. After a few hours of hanging out, Aries insisted they return the car quickly, but Ren wanted to stay longer. On the way back, tempers flared, and an argument erupted in the car. The distraction led to a crash. Yuri and Kiefer managed to jump clear, while the others were thrown from the vehicle. They pulled Aries to safety, but Ren vanished. Everyone assumed he had died. Now they believe Ren has returned, seeking revenge on Aries, and may use Jean to get to him. They warn her to stay away from him and promise to protect her. Felix insists Ren is his brother, but Jean promises to let him know if Ren contacts her again. That night, Ren calls, assuring her he is not using her to get to Aries. He promises he would never hurt her and will explain everything soon. The next day, Jean is dozing in class when Kiefer snaps a picture of her. She wakes with a start and chases him around the room, demanding he delete it. He dodges easily, laughing, while Yuri watches with growing jealousy. Jean finally deletes the photo, but notices other candid shots of herself on his phone and gets angry. She moves to sit with Yuri, but Kiefer simply follows, sitting behind her. They end up in a game of musical chairs until the teacher arrives, forcing her to sit between them. When the teacher announces a university visit, the room buzzes with excitement. Jean is confused until Yuri explains what it is. She passes Kiefer his form while he is still asleep, and Yuri mischievously suggests a prank. Jean draws a crooked mustache on Kiefer's face, setting off bursts of laughter from the class. Kiefer wakes, sees the drawing, and vows revenge. Yuri holds Jean in place while Kiefer draws one on her too. She shoots Yuri an accusing glare for betraying her, but Kiefer moves on, doodling on the rest of the laughing students until the entire room is in chaos. Later, once the laughter dies down and the class settles, Jean approaches the classmate she had lent money to and hands it back. Curious, she asks why he needs it. He says it is an emergency and promises to repay her soon. Although skeptical, she decides not to press the matter. That evening at home, Jean is surprised to find Mika and Ella visiting. Mika wastes no time in throwing insults, but Aries steps in to defend her. Ella, in contrast, is polite, inviting Jean to join them for a meal. Jean claims she is already full, but changes her mind when she spots a plate of sweets. As she eats, she cannot help noticing how effortlessly beautiful Ella looks without makeup or surgery. A wave of insecurity hits her, and she wonders if Kiefer has moved on. Her eyes begin to sting, but she quickly hides it, pretending her tears are from how delicious the food tastes. The next day at school, Cinco asks about her university form. Before she can answer, her phone rings with a call from an unknown number. Thinking it might be Ren, she answers, only to hear the same classmate from before. He says he is in trouble and begs her to meet him at a place called King's Land. Yuri, who overhears the name, reacts with alarm and insists on coming with her. At the gates, the guard greets Yuri as if they know each other. Inside, their phones are taken before they are led to meet a flamboyantly dressed man known as Tiger, who seems familiar with Yuri. Tiger comments that it is good Yuri brought her, prompting Jean to stay close. He explains that Kingsland is a gambling hub where losers often repay debts through brutal fights. Yuri offers to settle the classmate's debt, but Tiger refuses unless Yuri fights in the man's place. Jean pleads with him not to do it, but he makes up his mind. He asks a friend to keep her safe, though she follows him anyway. In the VIP lounge, Tiger tries to flirt until he casually mentions knowing her cousins and Kiefer, which keeps her from leaving. He reveals that Kiefer and the others used to come there regularly, until a fight over a girl ended their visits and caused a rift with Yuri. Suddenly remembering that Yuri is fighting, Jean hurries to the arena. She arrives just as he defeats his opponent. Overcome with emotion, she rushes to him. He hugs her and promises never to fight for her again. But Tiger announces the next match, against Kiefer. Kiefer enters, his fury directed at the man who brought Jean there. Without hesitation, he pulls her away. When she demands to know why he is so concerned, he admits he dislikes having her out of his sight. The men try to block their path, but Kiefer fights them off, escaping with her hand firmly in his. As they run, Jean notices the guard smiling, and behind them, Yuri watches with the realization that he is losing her. The following day, the group prepares for the university visit. Jean has forged her father's signature and is still on edge when she notices Cinco fumbling with his tie. She steps in to fix it, and soon every boy in the room lines up for her help. Yuri's attempt ends in a tangled mess, prompting her to adjust his tie as well. Not to be outdone, Kiefer pretends he cannot tie his either, even though she saw him do it earlier. She calls him out on the act but still helps, tightening the knot a little too much before pinning on his ID and walking away. Amused, he follows her with a smile. At the university, Jean notices a professor with the same surname as hers. The coincidence unsettles her, but she pushes the thought aside when Yuri asks if Ren has contacted her. Later, Felix proudly shares that he has earned a sports scholarship there and thanks her for inspiring him. Delighted, she hugs him, only for Kiefer to slide into the seat beside her. Once again, she finds herself sitting between Yuri and Kiefer, caught in the familiar tension. As the conference wraps up, Jean catches sight of the professor again, this time certain of who he is. Pulling out her phone, she scrolls through old photos until the truth becomes undeniable. He is her father. Heart racing, she approaches.
Pa? Papa?
And he pulls her into a warm embrace, his voice trembling as he admits he has dreamed of this moment and asks for her forgiveness. Before she can respond, Ari storms in and pulls her away. His voice is sharp as he warns the man to stay back, threatening to call the police and reminding him of an agreement with her uncle to never approach her. Jean, stunned and confused, tries to go back to her father, but Aries refuses to let her. Kiefer steps between them, pushing Aries aside, while the rest of the group closes ranks around her. At home, Jean confronts her uncle, demanding answers. He tells her to wait until tomorrow, insisting her mother will explain everything. She refuses, saying she does not want to see her mother, and runs upstairs in anger. The next day, she visits Kiefer's home and is struck by its size and luxury. When she asks who owns it, he casually says it is his and hints that it will one day belong to her future husband. He opens up about his own past, sharing that his mother passed away, his father quickly remarried, and that he eventually forced them both out of the house. When Kiefer asks about her troubles and she avoids answering, he suggests they play truth or dare with a twist. Refusing to answer means getting doodles drawn on the face. His first question is about her mother, and Jean admits she cannot stand her. In return, she asks if Kiefer could make peace with Aries. His silence earns him a mustache doodled across his face. She then asks about his earring. He explains it was his mother's, and that after Ren's death, he found it and began wearing it to feel closer to her. He warns her that appearances can be deceiving, pointing out that his own father is proof. She teases him by asking if that makes him the same. Their questions continue until both of their faces are covered in doodles. When Jean asks about his first love, she is surprised to hear it was the school bully, who he says was once a kind person before she changed. She presses about the missing second earring, and he admits he gave it to someone. Jean immediately guesses Ella. He turns the conversation to Yuri, and Jean says Yuri is sweet, caring, and makes her feel special. But when he asks what she thinks of him, she dodges the question, which only makes him laugh. The next day, Jean is still distracted when Kiefer's younger brother suddenly appears at school and attacks a classmate. Jean tells the others to stop the fight, but no one moves until Yuri steps in, shoving the boy away. Kiefer reacts instantly, punching Yuri to the ground. Jean hurries to help Yuri and scolds Kiefer, telling him both he and his brother were wrong. Kiefer's expression hardens as he realizes she has taken Yuri's side. At lunch, Yuri thanks her for defending him. Cinco tries to reassure her, saying Kiefer is a good person and will probably apologize. Eventually, Kiefer does, paying for everyone's meal and even giving Yuri a rare apology, which Yuri accepts. Kiefer then offers to help Jean reach her father, and she forgives him. That night, her family gathers in tense silence. The truth is grim. They are on the brink of bankruptcy. Her aunt breaks down in tears when Jean enters, but they quickly send her away. Her uncle insists the only solution is to partner with Yuri's grandfather's company. Unspoken, but understood, is the possibility that he might arrange an engagement between Jean and Yuri to secure the deal. The next day at school, Yuri invites her out to thank her again for defending him, and she agrees without hesitation. Later, when they meet, Jean seems distant, her thoughts elsewhere. When he asks what is wrong, she brushes it off, saying it is nothing serious and that she does not want to trouble him. Trying to lighten the mood, she playfully teases him about his appearance, turning her words into a near song. Just then, Kiefer arrives and pulls her aside, saying it is about her father. Yuri takes her other hand, and for a brief moment, the air between them is thick with tension. Jean chooses to leave with Kiefer, who brings her to the university. She seeks out a professor for information about her father, only to be told that the details are confidential and that he has already left. The news crushes her. Kiefer pulls her into an embrace, presses a kiss to her forehead, and promises he will be there for her no matter what. Later, she returns to the cafe where Yuri is still waiting. Without a word, he offers her a flower and presents a red ring, confessing his feelings before walking away, leaving the decision in her hands.
Ano na ako, Jay?
That night, Jean studies the ring, unsure whether to accept it or refuse it. Her aunt notices and comments that the man must truly care for her, advising her to think carefully. Soon after, her mother calls to invite her to her wedding. The conversation quickly turns tense when Jean accuses her of neglect and of hiding that her father had wanted to see her. She ends the call upset and unsettled. The next morning, Jean realizes something is missing from her room. Aries appears holding the ring box and demands to know who gave it to her. When she tells him it was Yuri, he offers her a deal: reject Yuri, avoid her friends in Section E, and transfer to Section A in exchange for her father's contact information. At school, preparations for the New Year's party are in full swing. Since they are not invited to the hotel celebration, the group decides to decorate their classroom instead. Jean feels a pang of unease when she notices Ella's name on a locker, but Kiefer quietly covers it with a sticker to spare her discomfort. Later, while she struggles to reach the higher decorations, Yuri teases her and lifts her up. Flustered, she freezes, then glances around the room and realizes how much this group feels like family. Kiefer notices her eyes glistening and tells her she should never be afraid of anything because he will always be by her side. When the dance and music competition begins, Cinco, Andrew, and Calix bring Jean along to join them. During a break, Felix tells her that Yuri is sitting alone. She goes to him, tries to cheer him up, and admits she liked the ring. They share a quiet laugh until Kiefer arrives, his jealousy instantly breaking the moment. Not long after, a roasted chicken goes missing. Everyone denies taking it, but Jean quickly notices Cinco is absent. She finds him under a table, secretly eating it. He apologizes, saying he could not resist, and she tells him to enjoy it. Moments later, an even bigger chicken is brought in, and the laughter continues. David approaches Jean with a necklace bearing her initial, claiming he found it outside. It is only later that she learns Ren had given it to him to pass along. The music starts again, and Cinco pulls Jean to dance. She tries to convince Kiefer to join them, but he refuses, content to watch her from where he stands. When Yuri takes the stage, he performs a romantic song, his eyes fixed on Jean. She glances at Kiefer, unknowingly sparking his jealousy. Yuri notices the exchange, feels the weight of her divided attention, and abruptly ends his performance. As the applause fades, the host announces the next round of competitions. The crowd is tasked with bringing back specific items, with the first to return declared the winner. The first challenge is chocolate. Calix seizes the moment, grabs Mika, calls her his chocolate, and wins the round. Cinco and Jean exchange an awkward glance but remain silent. The second item is sweets. Kiefer sweeps Jean off her feet, calls her sweet, and wins, handing her a prize of instant noodles. She scolds him, but Yuri gently calms her and guides her to sit beside him. When the hosts ask for something you love most, Yuri lifts her into his arms and runs, closely followed by Calix with Mika. The hosts quickly notice that Jean has become the center of attention. Without warning, Yuri openly confesses his love to her in front of everyone.
Because I'm in love with JJ.
Flustered, she hurries over to sit beside Cinco, her face burning with embarrassment. The gift exchange follows, filled with humorous surprises. Many gifts are unimpressive: hangers, a ladle, even a mini grater. But Felix wins the crowd by gifting Mika lipstick, applying it to her himself before asking for a kiss. Kiefer comes in second with a pair of shorts Jean had bought for him, identical to the ones he is already wearing. Jean's own gift falls flat, and she immediately suspects Kiefer is behind it. When she learns Cinco was the culprit, she chases him in mock retaliation. Back with the group, Jean looks around and realizes how much they have become like family. Her eyes glisten, and Kiefer notices. When she admits she is just happy, he encourages her to hold on to the feeling and pulls her back into the festivities. A brief montage captures her journey so far, entering the department, bonding with Kiefer and Yuri, sharing adventures, and navigating the complicated pull of their love triangle. It recalls Kiefer's quiet moments of closeness, Yuri's bold Christmas confession, and her family's financial struggles tied to Yuri's family. Jean wakes the next morning feeling groggy, her memories from the night before hazy, laughter, music, and Yuri watching her from across the room. She recalls refusing alcohol at first, then drinking in his place to catch his attention. As the evening wore on, she became too unsteady to stand, and Yuri became more attentive. Later, while she was looking for food, Yuri found her. He reminded her of his confession and told her she looked beautiful even when upset. She assumed he was drunk, but he was perfectly sober. Taking her hand, he confessed again, then dropped to one knee and asked her to marry him.
Jay, gusto ko malaman mo na.
Stunned, Jean told him they were too young and that she could not give him an answer. His face fell, and he quietly walked away, leaving her frozen in place, replaying the moment and wondering what he and Kiefer had discussed earlier that night. The following morning, her grandmother arrived, receiving a warm welcome from the household. Soon after, Cinco showed up unexpectedly and quickly charmed her grandmother. Angelo frowned at the talk of relationships, insisting Jean focus on her studies. In private, he admitted he felt guilty for being harsh, but then asked about the ring she was wearing. As business pressures mounted, the partnership with Yuri's family moved forward. Christmas preparations filled the home with activity. Her grandmother handed out gifts, and Jean smiled at greetings from Kit and Calix. Even a brief Merry Christmas from Yuri warmed her. During the gift opening, Jean received a white dress, beautiful, though unusual for her age. A week later, when she wore it, she felt a strange unease, heightened by Angelo's nervous reaction. On New Year's Eve in Fendi, Yuri predicted her arrival at the party. She met his family, then spotted Kiefer, but her excitement dimmed when he spoke to her coldly. A singer began performing a song that stirred memories of a moment she and Kiefer had once shared, and emotion overwhelmed her. She confided this to Yuri, then stepped outside. Yuri followed, seizing the moment to propose again, this time in front of everyone. He had just returned from Japan and invited her to dance. Under the eyes of the crowd, they moved together in a graceful but tense rhythm, while Kiefer stood apart, his heart breaking in silence. When the music faded, the countdown began. Cheers erupted as the new year arrived, followed by a celebration of Yuri's birthday. Jean took the stage to sing for him, her voice steady and clear, while Kiefer watched from the crowd, devastated. As the applause lingered, the atmosphere shifted. Both families stepped forward to announce a new business partnership, and without warning, Jean and Yuri were introduced as a couple. The room erupted once more, but this time Jean stood frozen, shocked and betrayed, while Kiefer stared in disbelief and Yuri remained silent. A doctor pulls Jean aside for a private word, but her family watches with growing suspicion, convinced Yuri has taken advantage of her in a vulnerable moment. Kiefer and Jean are both wounded, though for different reasons, while Yuri quietly basks in the arrangement, finally having the girl he has loved for years. Jean forces a smile, pretending to accept it, but inside she understands the truth. Everyone, even Kiefer, already knew about the engagement. Unable to bear the celebration, she slips out of the party in tears, replaying the realization that they arranged her marriage without telling her. Angelo finds her outside and admits he wanted to explain but never had the chance. Their survival depended on the deal. Jean is stunned that Angelo, of all people, would agree to it. She confesses she has made mistakes while trying to solve problems, but this is different. She wants to study, work, and live on her own terms. They insist there is no rush and that she and Yuri have time to get to know each other, yet the ring on her finger feels like a cage. Her aunt offers quiet sympathy, but the rest of the family believes it is the only way forward. They urge her not to resent Angelo, reminding her that the company was on the verge of collapse. By now, Kiefer has pieced everything together. Part of him wants to fight for her, but he knows doing so could shatter his relationship with Yuri and the rest of the group. He tries to hold back, yet when their song plays in the background, restraint becomes impossible. He has always feared becoming cold like his father, not realizing until now that he loves with the same intensity as his mother, masking it behind walls. This time, he refuses to walk away. He finds her and asks directly if she loves Yuri. Jean remains silent, caught between emotions. He tells her to either answer or let him kiss her. When she does not reply, he closes the space between them and kisses her. She shoves him away, furious and confused, but he pulls her back, kissing her again with all the feelings he has buried. Tears blur her vision until the elevator doors open and strangers step inside, forcing them apart. They stand still, pretending nothing happened, though the tension lingers. Jean retreats into thoughts of her family's sacrifices, while Kiefer hides his pain behind a stoic expression. She walks away, leaving him in silent tears. Moments later, Yuri appears and invites her to the rooftop, where the party continues under the glow of city lights. Laughter and toasts to the engagement surround them, but Jean forces her smiles, waiting for the moment she can leave. When she slips away, Kiefer finds her again. She asks why he chose now to make his move. He admits he is afraid, not of losing to Yuri, but of watching her marry when her heart belongs to someone else. He tells her he has always known the truth and will no longer hide his feelings. Fireworks burst across the night sky. Kiefer begins to speak again, but Jean stops him with a kiss. For a moment, he freezes, then returns it with the same unguarded intensity she once pushed away. The world around them fades until the sound of footsteps breaks through. Their families appear, and Amori notices her son standing alone, watching from a distance with heartbreak in his eyes. Jean stays in Kiefer's arms, tears mixing with laughter. Without Yuri, without explanations, she finally knows where her heart belongs. This time, Kiefer does not let her go. As the night wears on, they remain side by side, while somewhere else on the rooftop, Yuri silently watches the future he imagined slip away. So the moral of the story is, never mix love, lies, and lunch money. It always gets messy.